The 10th and final collection of Ministry of Defence UFO files released by the National Archives. There are 25 separate files of sightings, something in the order of 4,300 pages in total, that you can now download from the National Archives website. And they cover mainly the years 2008, 2009. The Ministry closed their UFO desk and cancelled their UFO hotline in November 2009, and that brought to an end almost 60 years of collecting, analysing, and in some cases investigating sightings of mysterious things seen in the sky. The highlights of this collection of UFO files, the last one, is the build-up to the Ministry of Defence's decision in November 2009 to close the UFO files. And in that month they closed the UFO hotline number, which members of the public had used since 1997 to report their sightings directly to Whitehall. They also redeployed the final UFO desk officer, and they sent out letters to the Home Office and to the Civil Aviation Authority, basically saying that the Ministry no longer wanted to receive UFO reports from the CAA or from the police, and they were no longer going to investigate anything that was reported to them. In this collection of files, there are 4,300 pages and 25 separate files. And the really big year is 2009, because in that year the Ministry received 643 separate sightings. That's up to November, when the UFO desk was finally closed. And that figure was actually it was quite a record-breaking number for the MOD. The numbers of sightings had trebled from the previous year, that was 2008, and on average, during that decade, the MOD was receiving between 100 and 200 per annum. But those numbers doubled in 2008 and trebled in 2009, and that really did put a strain on the resources that the MOD had committed to this subject, and really it led up to their decision to finally pull the plug on Britain's X-Files, simply because they just didn't have the resources to investigate these sightings or to look at them in any detail, so they tended to be just filed away. And the vast majority of the sightings in 2008 and 2009 seem to be of very down-to-earth objects, such as Chinese lanterns that have been released by people at parties and weddings, and these have been reported. Photographs have been published in the newspapers, and that encouraged more people to report these things. And what you find is, looking through the reports, you get people who are enjoying themselves out at night during the summer at barbecues. Some of them sat in hot tubs, and they see something odd in the sky, and they take a photograph on their mobile phone. And there are lots of examples in here where people are really, really excited about some orange light that they've seen in the sky. They want to tell someone about it. So there is a UFO hotline that the Ministry was running at that time, and they would contact the hotline, they would leave a message, and they would send some footage from their mobile phone or from their iPhone in some cases. And the photographs, you can see them yourself in the files. They're not very good quality. A lot of them are just little blobs of light against a very dark background. There are some more interesting photographs. There's one, for instance, of a UFO supposedly seen over Stonehenge in Wiltshire. But when you actually look at the description of that, you find that in a lot of these cases that people have sent photographs in, they didn't actually see anything at the time they took the photograph. So it's only when they downloaded it later that they've noticed something odd. And then maybe because there's been publicity about sightings in the press, they've thought they should tell someone about it. The vast majority of cases where nothing was actually seen at the time, but then shown up on a photograph, it turns out to be some kind of film fault that's created the image. So one of the really outstanding reports in this set of files is a sighting that was made by a group of soldiers from the Royal Irish Regiment at Turnhill Barracks in Shropshire, and that was in June 2008. This was a period when the Ministry was receiving a very large number of sightings of objects in the sky that were described as orange ball-shaped phenomena that often was seen in clusters, of lights that bobbed around in the sky, moved around in formation, completely silent, and a lot of these sightings were reported in the national media, in the tabloids, and the more sightings that were reported, the more it encouraged people to come forward with their own accounts. And this group of soldiers, they were out on guard duty at this base in Shropshire, and they saw these clusters of small rotating objects in the sky, and one of the soldiers, a corporal, captured images of these objects on his mobile phone, and he decided to contact the news media, and the story appeared on the front page of the Sun newspaper. It later emerged that the manager of a nearby hotel had a wedding party on the night of this sighting, during which the guests had released a large number of Chinese lanterns. And so the obvious conclusion was that what had been seen by these soldiers were Chinese lanterns. So there's quite a substantial file on this sighting and how the Ministry of Defence decided they would react to it. What you get in these files are lots of amusing letters from people who believe they've been contacted by aliens, people who are getting telepathic messages from aliens, and you get lots of photographs that people have taken of odd things in the sky, and sometimes people send in sketches and even Photoshop images because they haven't had a camera with them and they want to have some way of depicting what it is that they've seen. And also, one of the more amusing enclosures in these files is this letter from a schoolgirl that was sent to the Ministry of Defence in January 2009, and she'd been out in the garden with her father, and she'd seen a lot of little flying objects flying around in the sky, and she wrote to the Ministry of Defence, and she sent this little picture of an alien waving from inside a flying saucer, and she was saying, "Please tell me what the truth is, I have a right to know." What you also get in these files are, you get people reporting things, unusual natural phenomena, and this is one that I found particularly interesting, and it happened in August 2009, and this is a lady in Dorset, and she was in her kitchen one night, 9:50, and through the kitchen window came this bright white fireball about the size of a football, and it flew in through the open window and exploded in a flash of white light in her kitchen, and she was obviously, as you can imagine, extremely upset and worried about what had happened. But reading the description, it's a classic account of what's known as ball lightning, which is a very, very rare form of lightning that is sometimes reported, and there are numerous other examples of people who've seen these lightning balls that have actually sometimes come down the chimneys in houses or floated through open windows. And there are examples of people who have been harmed by them and burned, but in this case, fortunately, this lady didn't suffer any ill effects, and she could find no traces of this thing once it had exploded. So she was very, very fortunate. We've now come to the end of this programme of releases for the UFO files, and it's often said about UFOs that the truth is out there. Now, in my opinion, the truth is actually in here, in these files, and I would encourage everyone who's interested in this subject, whether you believe or whether you disbelieve, take the time to have a look at the contents of these files that can now be downloaded from the National Archives website.